70 years ago, when most of the world learned about the Holocaust, people were shocked that so many German soldiers were willing to torture people. When Adolf Eichmann went on trial, he said, "I was just doing my job." One reporter at that trial called that the banality of evil. Neuroscientist David Eagleman studies this phenomenon. And David, you say that even reasonable people in a certain situation may become cruel.
This sort of thing happens all the time, where people will turn on their unarmed and defenseless neighbors and murder them. And so this led scholars to try to figure out, is there something wrong with millions of people's brains in terms of their disposition, or can situational forces lead people to do these things?
And what they concluded was that the power of the situation and other people was very powerful. One fun example of it is, well, you see this card here with this line on it. How long is the line? Which of these three, 1, 2, or 3, is it the same length as? Tell us what happened, David.
So this was an experiment by Solomon Asch that happened after the Holocaust. He wanted to figure out how people are influenced in their opinions by other people. The other people in the room with you were all shills, and they would all pick the wrong answer and say that some line that was obviously not equivalent was the right answer. Most people will change their answer just because of the social context.
Well, one of the professors who did that study, one of his students went on to become a psychologist and run the most famous demonstration of how good people do not always heed the reasonable part of their brain.
The teacher will read a list of word pairs to you like these. Blue girl, nice day, fat neck, and so forth. You are to try to remember each pair.
50 years ago, Yale psychologist Stanley Milgram conducted this nasty experiment.
Now, if you get it correct, fine. If you make an error, however, you'll be punished with an electric shock.
He called the people giving the shocks teachers.
Your teacher is about to begin the test. Try and remember the word pairs.
Incorrect. You'll now get a shock of 75 volts.
Oh.
The test subjects kept making mistakes.
150 volts.
Oh.
Sad
Hey,
face.
wait a minute. That's all. Get me out of here. I told you I had heart trouble. My heart's starting to bother me now.
Actually, the man did not have a heart condition and was not receiving the shocks. That was a recording.
Let me out.
Still, most teachers kept giving the shocks.
That is incorrect. This will be at 3:30.
Most also resisted.
I don't want to go any further with it.
But even though the experimenter had no real power over the teachers, he wasn't their boss or commanding officer, most still did what they were told.
I mean, who's going to take the responsibility if anything happens to that gentleman?
I'm responsible for anything that happens here. Continue, please.
420 volts. 435 volts. 450 volts. He might be dead in there. I mean, some people can't take the shock, sir.
Please continue.
I don't tend to be rude, but I mean, I think you should look in on him.
Finally, they told the test subjects the truth.
God bless you, boy. You have me shaking in here.
Nice to see you.
Same
Feel better
here.
now?
I understand that a group of psychologists was asked to predict how many people would give the maximum voltage, and they thought less than 1%, and it turned out to be half the people.
About 65% of people went all the way up to the very top and gave the highest level of shock, even though they thought the person on the other side might be dead or unconscious. Both men and women, most of them went up to the very top.
Later, Stanley Milgram made a documentary about the experiments. The video we played was part of that. I like the way Milgram ended his documentary.
If in this study, an anonymous experimenter could successfully command adults to subdue a 50-year-old man and force on him painful electric shocks against his protests, one can only wonder what government, with its vastly greater authority and prestige, can command of its subjects.
Yeah, I wonder too. Government gets to use force. This experimenter couldn't do that.
That's right. Milgram actually was Jewish, and after the Holocaust, he, like the rest of the world, was trying to figure out how these things happen, how you get lots of people to attack and kill their unarmed neighbors. And he found that if you put the subject closer by, then people are less likely to go to the top. If you put the experimenter, the guy in the white lab coat, farther away, then people are also less likely to go to the top.
And I even wonder if this experiment could be done today, because some of the experimenters say they were traumatized by giving the shocks and might not be allowed today.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's not taught as much as it was when it first came out. And I think the most important thing is that every generation learns this and understands this, so that when they're in a situation with authority, they recognize the patterns in Milgram's experiments, like you set up simple rules, you give people titles like you're a teacher, or in other experiments you're a guard, things like that. There's some sort of goal happening. You make the exit costs high. There's a diffusion of responsibility where you tell the person, I'm responsible, not you. All of these things are the necessary ingredients for a population to have blind obedience.